Honestly, I've found it amazing, insightful, impactful. I must say that I've enjoyed the fact that the dialogue has transcended the conventional sort of terms that we use when it comes to oil and gas conferences. I've experienced in other conferences that there's always this large and heavy emphasis just on foreign direct investment, foreign direct investment, foreign direct investment. But as I was saying, this conference has been very confrontational, but not in a bad way. Not in a bad way at all. I mean, we've seen some panel discussions asking some of the IOCs, some of the operators, what is your role? How are you aiding, local content, capacity building? And I think it's very good because, typically it's always just been incumbent on government agencies to ensure that that's implemented. It's actually the first time that I'm at a conference where I'm seeing lecturers speaking, but not because of the particular knowledge within the oil and gas space, but generally how we can empower Namibians through not just, knowledge transfer by them getting opportunities to work at an IOC or work, in the services sector, but also saying, let's embark on things like public lectures. Let's make this access to information available more broadly, because I think oil and gas has sort of always been a niche market, reserved for an elite. And, we've heard Her Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah talk about how this is supposed to be beneficial for Namibians. And part of that is ensuring that it's not so elitist. I'll speak purely from a legal practice perspective first. I think within our practice, we've seen a lot of gatekeeping. So you see that, law firms are either associating with bigger law firms in order to tap into the oil and gas industry, and therefore your smaller law firms are excluded from the entire process. And, when one engages these law firms, they often are very reserved, if I could call it, about this information sharing. But the pie is so big, and the more people are empowered and have knowledge, the more we'll all learn. I mean, the oil and gas industry, the energy sector in general, is an ever-evolving one. So we need to, keep each other accountable and not be afraid to information share, as though information sharing means I'll have no bread and butter at the end of the day. That's sort of been the trend in the legal fraternity. So, I'm urging also us lawyers to share with one another and empower one another in that space. I think on a more broader level, one of the things that we can do and the systems we can put in place is actually taking lead from this conference, which is that the manner and the mechanisms and the models we have in place at the moment need to be completely revisited. So let's say from a financing perspective, right? We know that most banking institutions don't want to provide access to capital because there's this performance risk that's associated, right? But I'm saying, okay, let us then create frameworks where asset managers, within the venture capital spaces can de-risk the banks in that regard, by playing an intermediary role and also allowing SMEs to develop. And it should be incumbent. The banks can't operate solely as just commercial ventures anymore who cater only to an elite. The guys in the SME spaces need to absolutely be empowered. Then when we go to indigenous communities, we really need to revisit the way in which we've been doing our environmental impact assessments and the consultative processes involved. Namibia has many different languages, and we need to ensure that, we revisit those types of frameworks where it becomes more of a dialogue than this is what we want to do, say yes or no. Yes, instructions. It needs to be. And then also, if we are talking about socioeconomic upliftment of Namibian people, then our labor relations is going to have to play an extremely vital role. And ultimately, we need to have an overarching vision that or where there is legislation in place that corresponds with that. Otherwise, we'll have a very disjointed, you know, path in our energy sector, and we don't want to have that. I mean, I think Namibia's already done great by having all of these oil and gas conferences, and I think from a legal perspective, we as the lawyers, we need to do better with information sharing, and also where we see that there are issues, we need to challenge those issues. I mean, we know, access to information is a problem. People want the data, they want to understand what's happening, but we don't have the necessary frameworks in place, and without access to information, we can't empower one another. Honestly, the pride with which we are saying, this is ours. This is ours. It's okay. We know we need you, but you equally need us. So let's sit at the table. Let's discuss. I love that. For me, that was I'm so grateful for this. I'm so inspired by this because we're saying, no, it's ours. We are taking ownership. We will drive it. We will make sure that mechanisms are in place. And we will set the tone. Watch out.